all I'm trying to do is to help you to finish within this year. Right? That leads me to another. This program are going to need mentors. Who is a master guide? Someone you can rely on. I'm going to give you the list of master guides we have at Kelvin, and you are going to choose here the names. They are movers. You are being confined. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So, guys, to survive this program, you're going to need a master guide who's going to mentor you. I'm going to give you names you could approach, or names you could got them here. They are master guides here at Kelvin. We get what you get in terms of who we are. Because one who told you yesterday, maybe have somebody. The one who's saying amen is the one who's going to get paid. The one who's saying amen is the one that is mentored by this person. Here are the names. Again, if you can, please the genders. Not go off the genders. Because we don't want to be discussing anything in the church. Archie Tanzana is the master guide. He's got a pin. Hilda Kahle is yours, right? Kalonga Mabuti. You decide. Landela Tanzana. Yeah, Manta Danisa. Nomsom Shanga. Notando Masuku. Naba Ndiweni. Dombezi Zifautei. Umlanga Mlana. Phyllis Sibanda. Sifiso Danisa. Cindy Swabgiu. Sophie Sima. Hato Suopeng. Taken already by Deborah. No. Sophie, not Sophie. Hato. Okay. You're not taking your friends. You're taking guys who are going to challenge you. Tobe Kanong. Tulili Buso. Wendindro. These are the people. These are the people that I am told are master guides. Please note. We are not in competition with the mentors. Whatever they do, no. I'm telling you who are master guides.
So we approach them.
You approach them for yourselves. We are not in competition with them. I'm the coordinator of the master guide program. Theirs is to help you to meet the requirements. They are not going to tell you you've got to do it this way because they did it that way. That's not the point. And I'm not going to be arguing with you because your master guide mentor said this. I don't want to get into those. I want to be clear from the word go. Your relationship with them is a private one. It does not come to class. It does not become the point of stubbornness. It becomes a point of help for you. Especially for Bridget.
Yeah.
Prerequisites. I have told everybody, I know my black people, I know my people, I've worked with them. They do not understand what a prerequisite is. A prerequisite is something you do before everything else. You cannot be in a master's degree without the prerequisite of a a BA in other countries or an honors in South Africa. So you must have met all the prerequisites. You noticed that before we started, I checked those because I want you to have all the evidence. Evidence is going to be our friend in this group. Evidence. You are going to claim all you like to claim, as much as you like, how many times you want, but if there is no evidence, it's not going to help you. You are going to claim to have done a PhD in agriculture or something else if there is no evidence. You are going to claim to have been a master guide or you have not been a class teacher. If there's no evidence, it does not help. So prerequisites are things you do before. Congratulations to all of you. You have completed your prerequisites. You've met your prerequisites. You've fulfilled them. Except one thing that we need to get for next week is the letter from the church board, the recommendation. So I've checked all of you. You've met except that one. You have your certificate, you have your IDs, you've got everything. It's important that you keep your portfolio. If you use a file like that, don't tell me the rat ate it. We know these rats are misbehaving. The reason I'm going to be strict on it is because when you say you have completed the master guide, you must be telling the truth with evidence, supportive evidence. All right? Those that do not attend today's course or do not attend are not meeting that requirement. Even if you get it online, the requirement is attend the seminar. So I'm struggling to justify that you have attended and yet you have not been in class. I'm going to ask that we find a class rep who will take a register of everybody who comes, but also somebody who will, if there's anything you are not sure, unhappy about, you just talk to the person. Is it clear? Yeah. He's in trouble. Let's talk about the camps now. Camps. Camps. 2 camps. Everyone who comes late to class, please note, as of next week, whenever you are late, you bring 2 bottles of alcohol-free wine. You are going to add to my consumption of alcohol, non-alcoholic beverages. Please make it on time. Because for every 30 minutes we lose or 10 minutes, we are going to extend it beyond the time. You follow? So for every 10 minutes you are late, know that we are going to be 10 minutes late in ending. I know some of you are very good with time. They keep watch of time and they say 10 minutes. Now we're supposed to have ended the class. We will only end it when it is time to end. Because these requirements, or some of them, are time-based. I'll give you an example. Today's classes are 2. Each of them is 1.5 hours. 90 minutes. All right? So please remember that we are setting the ground rules for those that are arriving so that we are all clear and we are all on the same page. So I was clarifying, Naya, when you were out, you were not here, that I cannot justify, I need to still consult the guys, I cannot justify when it says attend and you do not attend and watch it online. I'm unable to, I'm struggling to justify that because the requirement says attend a class. You with me? So I'm unable at this stage to justify that and disadvantage you when somebody says, but you did not attend, you watched it online. So I'm leaving that for now until the courses you are going to attend are very few anyway. If you look at what I've sent you, the bulk of the stuff is self-study. And I'm hoping that you are not waiting for us for self-study. Let me just guide you on the steps to Christ. Steps to Christ is not a summary. It is a response page. One response page. Now, as a master guide, you must watch details because it tells you everything. In the stuff I gave you, as I told you, I've never done it that way for anybody. You are the best. You have done it the best for you.
Amen.
You are to watch every detail. If the requirement says attend, you attend. If it says write a one-page response, and it says, as it says in Steps to Christ and others, focusing on the benefits. It is no use for you to summarize it because you are not doing that requirement. You are doing another requirement when you summarize it. You with me? So Steps to Christ is a one-page response. It's a one response page. You are basically focusing on the benefits. I enjoyed this book. I found it insightful. I found it interesting. These were the benefits and so on and so forth. One page. I'm going to invite, it's not a requirement, it's a class that I want to give especially for you. I spoke to her yesterday. I'm going to invite Tato Sopeng to come and present to you on the requirement, the requirement that says present the fundamental beliefs, oral presentation. She's going to teach you how to teach it to young people. You are not going to present a Bible study to adults because the master guide is about junior youth. So you are working with adventurous children and you are working with Pathfinder teens. So when you prepare that requirement, you are going to make sure it is done for that group. So I'm giving you an extra class for that. Let's talk about there are 2 camps that you must attend, available at your disposal. You wanted to ask something, Jane. You may speak. Feel free. Even if we are recording, it doesn't mean you cannot be free. Let's engage. Let's get the mic. Where is the mic now? There was a mic that was given, a roving mic. Oh, it's here. It's here. It's here now. If you could pick it up for us, please. You heard I'm confined to this space, eh?
Just being a brother's keeper, I'm concerned about Mangobo. She's going to be behind.
Yes.
She's the only one. Hasn't she sent a message or anything?
She's supposed to be here. Every one of you is supposed to be here. I want to emphasize what she's saying indirectly. I said it earlier. If you miss a class, do know that we are not repeating it this year. We are not repeating a class, so you will catch it up next time. Remember, I want to repeat it for those that were not here. We are doing Master Guides class this year. Master Guide. Next year we are doing PLA. A year after next we are doing APLA. In other words, we are progressing. You will catch the cycle another time. We are not going to be in year 1 at PA level forever. I repeat again, if you miss this opportunity this year, we are not repeating it. We are having a 3-year cycle that will ensure that after Master Guide, we do PLA. After PLA, we do APLA. Is it clear? You were asking something, Sam. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the camps then. The TOC, I spoke to the TOC, the youth director specifically. He would like all people to attend, including master guides in training, to attend. They are going to deal with all Master Guide related matters. They are not going to do BST, they are going to focus only on Master Guides. So it's important that you attend that course. He has agreed to allow us to register at 150. Negotiations were hard, but he said it's okay. 150 rands instead of paying the 600, so you can be day, but please be faithful. Attend the weekend. Attend the weekend. It starts on Friday, continues up to Sunday.
But that's Friday evening, right?
Friday evening, yeah.
So it must be the 150 is for when?
For the whole
For
weekend.
for the whole weekend. You are a day visitor. For those that do not want to sleep. I should have given that background. For those that do not mind going to sleep there, it's fine. 600 is the standard amount. It includes meals.
It includes meals 150.
The 600.
The 600.
Or 150 I must bring my
Yours.
You are on your own. You are a day visitor. It's a day pass. It's a pass for the weekend. Days, the 3 days pass. No, the deadline is the same deadline as the 600 rands, the same account details. You've got them on your WhatsApp.
It's right here in Pretoria.
No, it's here in Oliphants 14.
Yeah.
So you go.
So you've got all the info. I sent it to you on on the WhatsApp broadcast. Are we clear?
Just pay that. They will know that it's us.
You follow all the requirements.
No, I'm talking
No,
about
he
the
says he's going to announce it to the conference. He has not yet announced it. But after the negotiations, that's when he doesn't want to broadcast it now.
Okay.
But he's going to announce it.
So the payment, when do we do that?
Look at the program.
No, but what I'm saying is,
There's a letter I sent you.
yes, I saw the letter.
I don't remember now.
No, what I'm asking is that now it's 150 for us, but you are telling us that he's still going to negotiate with the,
Not negotiating, is announcing.
he's announcing it, so we can pay from today
You
onwards.
can pay anytime.
Thank you, Pastor.
All the requirements and the particulars are in that letter.
We saw, yeah, I saw them. Thank you.
Okay?
To do what? Yes.
It is to your advantage to attend.
It's your advantage.
The other one I'm going to talk about is compulsory. This is now in fulfillment of camping skills 1 to 4. We as this group will have a master guide camp. In that camp, you will learn camping skills.
I was going to say, from what I heard from some of the people who are going to be there presenting, it is going to help us, especially with conference-related things, in everything that the conference that is going to be from the perspective of the conference,
Yes.
what their thinking is, what their plans are, just for us to know what the conference is going to be doing and what would be the expectation on all master guides that is going to help. So though it may not be compulsory, I think we should emphasize on what Mfundisi was saying, that it is going to be very helpful. For an effective master guide, you would be benefiting a lot to come back knowing how to benefit your church with the equipment you'll be getting from the conference.
I will be there myself, so no doubt. I won't be available. That's why you see in the program, we've changed to accommodate that. Because my question to him was, do I need to bring my master guides in training? He said, yes. And he explained to me why. So I then said to him, I will encourage all my master guides to go. All right? So that's why I sent that to you immediately. So let's plan to be there. The program has factored it. In other words, the first Sabbath of July, we are not here that weekend. Those of us who are in the Master Guide program. All right, we are ready now to begin.
No, you didn't finish the other camp.
The one you will get to know.
Yes.
It's our local one. We will fulfill a number of other requirements in that camp. It's a survival camp. This means, in English, you will survive on your own. You will cook your own meal. You will set your own tent. You will do everything yourself.
Before that, you would have given us a lesson for all those things.
No.
Yes, yes. Donovan is coming specially for that if we can get him here.
Okay.
To talk to you about everything camping and show you. He's a specialist of it. He's going to show you everything of camping. You are in the right group. Don't worry. Relax. Relax. We'll organize everything for you. The only thing we will not organize for you is self-study. There we can't help you. There you are on your own. You've got to do that. You've got to read. By the way, I told you, Jane, do you have some of the stuff? The one you have the education and steps to Christ. Kaloku, who Jane ordered this stuff? Remember, I gave you the opportunity to choose. I did. I may excuse you because you may have not been in the group when I sent it to everyone. No, you were there. You were there the first day. The first day I saw you, you were there. Remember you asked me, what is this portfolio?
Exactly.
And then I said, it's optional for you. It's not a requirement.
But what is it?
It's a way of making sure all your data is in one place.
That's cool. But Moruti, let's say I don't want the actual binder like that, but prefer to print out the material. Am I allowed to do that? Will you
Whose
make that?
material?
Your material.
But this is great because I'm giving you everything that you need.
Okay, guys, let's not talk about that now. Let's talk about the class. I want to finish the class. We can talk about that after this privately. Is that okay? We don't want to make it a class discussion. All right. Welcome to this course. The first course we are doing is Christian leadership. We are doing for you Christian leadership. You will see it's got a course code, I think LEAD something. Forgotten what it is now. 160 or something like that. We are going to do 2 parts today. And you walk out. How do you collate evidence for this? By your notes. I don't need to tell you all of those. I've sent them to you. You follow me? Your notes are going to be evidence that you are going to put in your folder that you have attended this course. I may not.
Or the ones you sent?
The notes I give you now.
Or the ones you're going to write?
The notes that I prophesy to you now.
It's going to be a long year, Moruti.
So it's important that you write notes. You can type them afterwards and put them in your folder. All right? Since it's recorded, you may go back to the notes, but you must attend. Yabona Deborah. Attendance is important. We are going to talk about the class, by the way, so that you decide when you want the class. I don't mind. I'm going to leave it to you. If Sunday is not a convenient time for you guys, you come up with the time, but it must be convenient for all of us. Okay. All right. We are going to talk about Christian leadership. What is leadership? There are over 1,000 definitions of leadership. If there's anyone who has thought about leadership, they all define it in their particular way. If you Google on anything on leadership, in fact, I think there are 8,000 definitions, almost 10,000 the last time I checked. It was a lot. Everybody has their understanding of definition. If I were to ask you in class now, you would all define leadership in different ways. But here, leadership, just leadership. What is leadership? You would tell me it's the this and the other, this and the other. Others think it's the position. It's not the position. Leadership does not require position for it to be effective. Position only authorizes what is already there. Don't confuse leadership position with leadership. All right? So, what is leadership? For me, leadership is the multidimensional. In other words, it has different dimensions. It has several dimensions. And I'm going to spend time on this model explaining this to you. It's, for me, the brain power and the empirical capacity. Capacity. Leadership is the capacity. It is the ability. It is the capacity, it is the ability all rational and social creatures inherently possess. You look at children who may be playing in a playing ground. You will notice that one of them will stand out as a leader even if they are not appointed. You see birds in the air. There is some leader that they are following. So it's the capacity, it's the ability, it's the even the potential, because others have it as a potential. You know, because other people are your extroverts, they show it almost immediately, while others take a while to show it up. So if the extroverts did not lead, if I had set you up as a group here and I said discuss, there will be somebody who will take lead without being appointed, without being asked. So it's the capacity. So when we put it in a position, when we put that person in a position, they show leadership. But they do not depend on that position. Oftentimes, people don't understand this, but let me say it. Some of the leaders do not have titles. They lead from the pews. There are people who are influential from the pews, more influential than the leaders who stand in front. There are more people who lead better than the CEO, yet they are not the CEO. Yes. Are you following? Yes. Sometimes you have a person who leads but is not a leader. So all of us are inherently possessed and socially demonstrate, which is naturally developed. In other words, for other people, they can develop it naturally. It's a whole debate about are leaders born or leaders made. You have in families people who may be number 3, but they are the leaders of this family. The leader, the guy who's born first, is not always the leader. Yeah. In the African setting, in the Jewish setting and other settings, you are given difference because you are the firstborn. But you may not necessarily be a leader. It is spiritually endowed. By that I mean it is a spiritual gift. For others, it's natural ability, even if they don't believe. But for others, it is spiritually given. The moment they become Christians, they become given leadership. You will see it in Scripture. Scripture does not have this idea of democratization of leadership, where everybody is a leader kind of thing. Scripture regards it as a spiritual gift. All right? Spiritually endowed and educationally developed. I always say this to people. Education does not develop what is not there. It develops what is already in place. You know, the corporate sector spends a lot of money, spends a lot of funds trying to develop leaders, and the company still does not perform better because they are investing on the wrong people who do not have it. You may be taken through a management course many times, but if you don't have it, you don't have it. And it's educationally enhanced, which we consciously and unconsciously use. Unconsciously, you jump into a leadership role and you don't realize you're jumping into a leadership role. Consciously, you say, hey, there's no leadership here, let me lead. You with me? We use to nominally and effectively influence. Leadership is about influence. We could move people a little bit, or we could move people a long way, effectively. We use it to influence, to inspire, to impact, and transform each other's thinking and actions. Leaders affect your thinking and affect your actions. Because you have leadership, you think differently and you act differently. So leadership influences, inspires, impacts, and transforms. Because of leaders, we have been transformed. I'll give you an example. Nelson Mandela transformed the way we look at the politics of South Africa. Or transformed, in his younger years. He got arrested for it, and he still, even though he was in prison, inspired us, influenced us. The ANC used his name to inspire us. PAC used Robert Sobukwe to inspire us, to impact us. Young people used their ability to inspire others to inspire and impact and transform our thinking. We thought of freedom. We did not think of freedom and did not see the point of being free. There were people who say, but what is the problem you are raising? What are you talking about? But leaders got to influence us to think and act differently. All right? Our history is also affected, and our reality, for better or for worse. This is the unfortunate thing about leadership. Even Hitler influenced, impacted, and transformed people, but for the worse. You have good leaders that impact us and transform us for the good, but you have leaders who transform us for the worse. Leadership could be used by gangsters even to influence other gangsters. I'll come to you now once I'm done with the definition. And it has influenced our history and our reality for better or for worse, now and forever, towards and away from shared vision, which I've just explained now, for just and unjust causes, with or without leadership titles. To selfish and noble causes. All right? This is the effect of leadership. It could cause us to go north or to go south. So as a master guide, you are in the space of influencing even the children you will be leading. The adventurers, the pathfinders, and everybody else that you work with. You have a potential to influence them for better or for worse. You have a potential to drive them towards a particular direction or a direction that is directionless. You had your hand up.
Two things. As far as that, thank you, ma'am. As far as that definition is concerned, I'm noticing a mixture, conglomeration of ideas that are some scriptural and some extra scriptural. I was going to ask if we are required to be exclusively scriptural in our master guide notes and in our practice. Are we also allowed to be both scriptural and extra scriptural in what we are going to be doing in our leadership, for example.
Scripture does not detail leadership. It simply demonstrates it. So my model is based on my observations of what I've observed in leadership. For example, I wrote a book called To Lead. I talk about the 7 realities of leadership. For example, leadership. In leadership, you are called. It's not, I'm observing what is in Scripture. I am not necessarily, when I say it's multidimensional, for example, I am observing what is happening in Scripture. All right?
Yeah.
The second question?
Yeah, the second one is on the spiritual part of it. And this is my observation now in response to that you don't even have to be spiritual for you to receive a spiritual gift.
You don't have to be what?
Spiritual.
For you to receive a spiritual gift?
Correct. It is my observation that while you may have your focus and life in another direction, when the Spirit wants to use you, it will use you. Whether it hardens your heart and you end up leading in one direction, or whether it softens your heart so that you lead in another direction, or influences or appears to you in a dream or whatever. We know exactly. For example, many people. I
didn't make that statement. You do realize.
This is my observation.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I am saying.
I am not going to dismiss it because you may be looking at different things. I don't think it's outlandish what you are saying. I don't think it's out of line. It is possible that God could use you even if you are not spiritual. There are instances, for example, your soul does not appear to have been spiritual.
Yes.
But God used him for his purposes.
Correct.
There are times God uses secular people.
Yeah.
I do believe, for example, the South African situation is an example of that, where there were secular leaders who were trying to bring about change.
So I'm glad you share that view, Mfundisi, because I was then going to touch on the example of Adolf.
The what?
The example of Adolf.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Adolf Hitler, while history records him to have been an evil leader, he was an evil leader to some people.
He was a what?
An evil leader to some people, like the Jews. But he was a good leader to those who benefited from his cruelty. So when we look at history, we're looking at history from the most influential perspective, but we do have an understanding that there were people who were benefiting from his actions, and those people saw him as a good leader. So even in what we do right now, in our training, we might find ourselves leading as best as we believe we are supposed to lead, but some people may not necessarily benefit in a positive way from what we are going to call leadership, but some will most probably benefit from what we call leadership.
At this stage, I was talking about the capacity regardless of the benefits. I was saying sometimes it is for selfish goals. It's still leadership. The architects of apartheid, your Verwoerd, for example, led this country as the president of this country. D.F. Malan before him led this country, and they were leading them in policies that were not beneficial to a certain sector, but much beneficial to the Afrikaner community, and exclusion of the white English people, and so on and so forth. So I was talking about the capacity. I wanted you to broadly and not narrowly view leadership only in terms of benefits that are positive, but realize it's a capacity to lead, whether or not it is good or bad. So other people will be gangster leaders and do well at it. And they are still using leadership.
Actually, I just want to maybe make an example in terms of what leadership. Are you having a royalty that? I just wanted to make a point when you said leadership is the capacity, regardless of position or intent or outcome.
Yes.
It's the capacity to influence others
Yeah.
specifically, to take or follow on either an ideology or do certain actions or whatever, in whatever environment it is. We're not making a moral stance on
Yes.
leadership. We are just talking about leadership as a thing,
Yeah.
what it is. Mafias, for example, they are notorious for colluding and hijacking things and just being very bad citizens.
Yes.
But within that mafia, there's a hierarchy and there's a leadership structure that exists. The boss is the boss and what he says goes. So I don't think we're talking about the
Moral.
integral part of what leadership is, but
Yeah.
we are just talking about it as a thing, what it is.
Yeah.
The ability for you
We are
to
at
sway
definition levels now.
minds. Yeah.
Okay? You wanted to say something. I want you to remember we're going to have to, because I don't want us to go without having covered majority of the things we need to do. So let's engage, but let's engage minimally so that we cover a lot so that the requirements are also met.
Yeah, I was looking at the definition of Mfundisi, and I think we are moralizing and taking a moral stance if we're going to use phrases like just or unjust cause. That's the full fling of moralizing.
My pivot really is, do not see leadership, whether it is just or unjust, is not the issue we are discussing. We are simply saying, or I'm simply saying, leadership is that capacity that leads to certain directions.
Yes.
It influences people, whether in your view it is just
Correct.
or unjust. That's not my issue.
No, it effectively becomes an issue if you're going to make mention of it there. If you're going to say leadership is the
I'm
capacity
saying
to lead,
it for you.
I understand. That's what I'm
Whether
responding
it is just or not just, I want you to appreciate this thing that it is a capacity to lead people, whether you
Either
see
way.
it as just or unjust. So I want you to demoralize it. That's my intent really here, but to see it as a capacity. In other words, what informed this definition you made, I didn't tell you, is the fact that people only want to think of leadership in positive terms. And I'm saying, no, leadership is everything. Is leadership regardless of its positive or its negative. It's just, it's unjust, it's for a good outcome, it's for a bad.
regardless of the direction you're leading people
Yes,
in.
but that's what leadership is. And it is multidimensional. There are several dimensions at stake. Now I'm going to move to the next one then, so that we begin to process some of the things. Let me start. No, it's not. Let me just do this reality check. He says leadership affects the quality of our lives as much as our in-laws affect our blood pressure. In bad times, which have been plentiful over the millennia, over the years, over the periods, twisted leaders have been the leading cause of death more virulently than plagues. There he's making a moral statement. I am saying, by that statement, leadership affects our lives in very serious ways, in ways that we had not imagined. Leadership. In other words, as a master guide person, or as a master guide leader, or as a master guide, you are going to affect people's lives. Again, I use the words I used there previously, for better or for worse. So it's important as we get into the phase I'm getting into, to understand how you manage it so that as a Christian leader, the effect is not negative. Okay? So if leadership affects us this much, how much more should we as leaders be cautious? Okay? Because other people stay in church and leave church because of you. because you affect them, their lives as a leader. All right, please note this is a trademarked. This is trademarked work. I will gladly sue if I have to find you using my work without my permission. No, if you take this and you go and write it up, you're in trouble with me. It's not copyrighted. No, it's fine. It's fine. The reference you can do. But I'm saying it's a trademark thing. I spent years on this thing. And I developed it. I'm not saying it's perfect, but one thing is clear. It is meant to highlight some of the things to make our lives a lot better in leadership. So, leadership, I call it leadership intelligence. Leadership has, in my view, 4 dimensions. So that leadership stands for, if I may just go back to that, I stands for integral. Not integrated, but integral. That means comprehensive leadership. In other words, it looks at several dimensions. It looks, like I said earlier on, multidimensional. It looks at different perspectives so that you are effective and successful in your leadership. In my view, there are 4 dimensions. I'm basing it on a particular theory. They call it theory of everything. There are 4 dimensions that affect us. I'll give it to you one by one. The first dimension of leadership that affects us is the person's character. What I call the ontological dimension. That has to do with your ontology, your ontos, your reality, your everything about you. You following? So everything about you, everything about the next person affects the way you do leadership. It is informed by what has shaped you. This is why I get worried oftentimes and I say to people, please be careful of the kind of leadership you exemplify as a Christian leader. Because you are a dictatorial person, you are likely to cause other people to be dictators because they don't have any other example to look at except you. And so they are emulating what they see. So the character of the person, the ontos, the reality of the person, the personalities and everything, the history, the way of doing things, all affect us. They come through. So when Mandela tells you his story, he was shaped by his circumstances that made him realize things are not as good in South Africa as they need to be. His exposure, his world and worldview sometimes shaped how he got to see things. Some of the people may have grown up in cruel backgrounds and cruel homes, and they project that in their leadership. For example, how you become impatient with an adventurer and a pathfinder is informed by your background. It's informed by your character. It is informed by everything you are, the ontological dimension. Are we still together? So your character is unfortunately going to be what we need. So sometimes you must realize when we ask you to be a leader, we are not asking the person next door, or we are not even asking your mentor. You know, there are guys who imitate their mentors. They just stop being themselves and they imitate, they mimic their mentors. Everything they are is their mentor. It may be a person of senior age, a person of their family, it may be a person in the same profession. I've seen pastors imitate other pastors. The whole time that this person is in his entire life, his or entire life, is simply imitating a particular pastor. You know, he's not himself. He's not comfortable. He or she is not comfortable with being himself, but chooses the other person's persona. And we wait and hope that this person will one day show his or her true self, the authentic self. But the person shows other people. Some of them are very influential in their lives. Sherry may like the husband, looks at this guy every morning, says, oof, you know the way he speaks. And you sometimes you are conscious of it, sometimes you are not. Sometimes a person is intentional about it, and somebody is not intentional. All right? So the ontos is important. It influences everything, but we are looking here for the the authentic self. Because leadership is an expression of oneself, or one's being. Ontology is being, ontological dimension. It's like psychology. But this one is a philosophical word they use, ontological. So I'm saying there's that side that comes into play. Now, Archie, I need to move closer so that I can see some of these things. Identity, intelligence, being a unique and authentic leader. So when we have asked you to become a leader, we have not asked anybody else. Yes, it's good to learn from your influencers, but we are looking for Jane. We're looking for Sidon. So we are not asking, we are looking for Samo to lead us from her own identity. Of course, there's natural identity and there's acquired identity. You know the difference between the two, right? Natural identity is, let's talk about the fact that you are black and that you are female. That's natural identity. You can't escape that. Acquired identity is any identity that you learn. It is possible for you to have been born a black person but be brought up in a white culture. So that's acquired identity. Even your closeness is not your natural identity. Or your vendorness. She wanted me to mention the vendors too. Or your Sotho-ness or your Zimbabwean-ness is not, it's acquired. It happened to you because you are in that environment. So you could have been born in Umtata, like me, and you grow up in Johannesburg. So you have acquired the identity of that environment. Some of us confuse our natural identity with our acquired identity. You are called an educated person because you went to school. It is not your natural identity, but you acquired this particular way of thinking. Adventism is not your natural identity. Doesn't matter even if you were born in the church, Deborah. Even if you were a PK as you are, you acquired it, you adopted it. And so you operate from the basis of that acquired identity. Of your identity. For example, you go to Home Affairs. This is what surprised me the other day, blew my mind. When I got to Home Affairs, this lady says to me, give me your, I gave my print of my arm, my hand, my palm print. So while I'm doing this, I'm asking, the machine is scanning. I said, is there someone in the world who has my print? She says, there's no one. In the entire world, there is no print. Sidon has his own print. No one else. So I said, do you mean of the 7 billion people we have in the world, none has my same print? Says yes. None. In the whole world, only you has. So you are a very unique person, not only in terms of these fingerprints, but also in terms of your face. Yes, you may resemble an element of your father, your mother, your relatives, and everybody else, but you are unique. So it's important that you appreciate your uniqueness and take it to their advantage. Do not try and be anybody's imitation. The only person we need to imitate is Jesus Christ. Nobody else. The world is looking for the unique Samu in the world. You will hear somebody say, I like the way she does things. I like the way she speaks. Your voice sometimes may be unique. It may resemble some of your mothers, your fathers, and everybody else, but it is unique. So you are unique in every way. Do not try and lead like everybody else. You may like them, you may admire them, but you are here to be the unique and authentic self that God created. Physical intelligence. You need energy to lead. Leadership is energy. To succeed in leadership, you need energy. There are people who are lazy who get into leadership. For example, as a master guide, you've got to prepare some of the materials for the class. You see? You've got to prepare some don't prepare. They don't want to spend their energy. They're looking for, some of the guys preach and you get shocked. Preach sermons that have been done by somebody else. We had a service here one day. I will not mention the name. The guy did well and I was blown away. I was like, wow! As we were driving home, somebody who I was driving with said, do you know that the sermon he was preaching was so-and-so's sermon in America? You can see my disappointment. We've got to apply ourselves to the task at hand. Got to give ourselves the best, try our best, give it our best. Otherwise, we are not. It's a wasteful exercise because you are going to not apply yourself. Okay, so it's important that you use that energetic leadership. We need energetic leadership. We need leadership that will perform. You see, I want to illustrate it this way. Now you've got to be alert, Archie. Leadership has an end goal in mind. If you are not going to apply yourself, you are not going to move this chair to where it needs to be. We want to get this chair to the other side. Some people can move this chair this way, perform and do their best. Others are going to, it's so hard. It's so hard. There are times you have leadership that simply stalls the church or stalls that organization. You talk about wasteful years. Because the leader did not apply him or herself energetically to the task at hand, but was willing to do very minimal and keep things as they are. Okay? Let me move on to the other one. I'm going to try and move fast now. Intellectual intelligence. Leading intelligently. Leading intelligently. Leaders must be continuous readers. Continuous, not readers for the sake of reading, but must apply and challenge themselves intellectually to understand things better. I cannot lead the same way I've been leading previously. I'm using the Master Guide as an example, the Master Guide program that we are on now. Every time I have run this program, and I've run it at conference level, I've run it at different levels, I make sure it is better than the previous one. All right? Because I apply myself, I sit in front of the computer, how can we do it better? I must challenge myself intellectually and do things much better than I've done before. Even if I'm in the same position. I have been now in the pastoral ministry for almost 20 years. I have asked myself every year, you know what I would do every year? I did it even last year. I would stay at home when everybody's enjoying holiday and ask myself serious questions about the next day. Do research, ask questions, get more knowledge, ask, have I done better this year? Review. And how can I do better? Because I want to challenge myself intellectually to lead and be informed about everything else there is. Information. You expand your mind. You wake up and read. You wake up and think. Because you are wanting to be better in your game. Emotional intelligence. This is a problem in the church. This is a problem if you are a Seventh-day Adventist. Because as a Seventh-day Adventist, you were taught, and this is bad teaching really, you were taught that what matters is truth, not people's hearts. You were taught here, not here. Some of us are brutal leaders, rough leaders, careless leaders, cruel leaders, because we do not have emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means you must be sensitive and caring towards the people you are leading. Sensitive, caring, considerate. Some of us, I always make this example. It's important to appreciate the people who are in church are there because they are volunteers. Whoever comes through that door, or whoever comes to your adventure or Pathfinder club or class, is there voluntarily. Your treatment of that person determines whether that person finds it interesting and comfortable to stay in that class. If you are going to be cruel towards other people, you are giving reasons. Your truth may be truth, but it doesn't have to hurt. Jesus, they say, said his truth with tears in his voice. So it's important that we teach ourselves emotional intelligence, the ability to think, how does it land for them? How does it feel for the other person, what I'm going to say? Sometimes you lose it. Let's accept that. But apologizing is not out of hand. All right? The other one is is spiritual intelligence, leading with the God factor of God in mind. Leading, mindful of the fact that you are accountable to God. You know the Bible tells us everything we do or say, anything they say in the law when they arrest you, anything you say or do could be used against you in the court of law. Anything what we say or do, even in our Christian interactions, could be used against you. A friend of mine, we were running a Pathfinder Camporee in out in Cape Town, out of Cape Town. And I know him to be a Christian man, very tender-hearted, spiritual guy. Lost it and beat this Pathfinder. You have no right to beat any child, by the way. Says who?
Since when?
Every day. Since Mantuka. Since you don't have any right to beat any child in the club. You can discipline them, but not beat them. When you beat a child, whose
They did.
parent never beats them, you are in trouble.
Of course.
Yes, that's why you say we cannot beat any child. The only child you can beat is your own. And then we deal with you with the law if they want to deal with the law. But I'm saying the point is you cannot be found losing it with children to the point of being violent with them physically.
Violence.
Okay, violent thing.
There's a
Let's
difference.
explain
How
this
was
violence.
this guy violent with the child?
He beats the child.
Like violent, like
And the
abuse.
parent came flying
How?
to the camp. This is a friend of mine, I'm the director, youth director. He's a federation officer, my friend. I have great respect for the guy because I've known him, I've lived, I've stayed in his house. I don't know what hit him that day.
The child.
No, what hit him to hit the child.
Okay, the
What
child.
was hit the child and the child reported it to the parent. The parent wanted him arrested.
But was this child badly beaten or it was just slept around?
Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter
As
is
though there's a
BEAT. Mamela Sam, there's BEAT in the process. That becomes a big deal on its own. Whether you have just bumped the child accidentally, you've got to account.
The Bible says spare rod.
Spare rod.
Spare rod does not mean a rod only. You can discipline by other means. Remember, people are sensitive about their children.
Right, then they shouldn't bring them.
No, they're bringing them not to be beaten by you. When they dedicate their children,
Then they should discipline them at home.
no, they may discipline them.
In what way?
Yeah,
Whatever way,
No, but
it's
then-
theirs.
I mean, that's
It's
the
not
reality.
yours.
Yeah, no, and children will be children anyway. They will,
Children will
they
be
will
children.
push you to the limit.
Yeah, children will be children, you'll be
No matter
challenged
how
by them.
disciplined
But
they are
the
at
point
home.
I'm making here is
No, that's the
lead
thing that
with spiritual intelligence. You are in the context of the church. Church is not a place where we beat people. They may have beaten you in your younger years. There was no law to cover you then. Now there are laws and they're sensitive parents.
But the
But
Spirit says
lay
lay
hands on
Parents
them.
who will not like your ordination of these children. In any way. Imagine if your child is beaten.
Yeah, of course.
Imagine. You are imagining the worst. And you have stopped beating the child for some reasons. You think, this child is 18 now, he can't be beaten. This I will take liberties you no longer have. Or you've decided you will never beat a child.
But
And-
are we allowed to discipline at all? Because if you
Discipline
don't
is
beat
good.
them, you maybe put them at a naughty corner.
Yeah,
Still
that's
still
discipline. It's
play.
fine. But imagine somebody who's coming for that on discipline. But the point I'm making is we do not support you as a church when you beat a child. You're on your own. If you beat a child, as I said in the basic staff training, you are on your own. We don't beat children as a church. No, you don't leave them. You deal with their issues.
No, but
You find ways of making them realize there are consequences to this thing. There may be misbehavior. And you even reporting to the parent is itself discipline, depending on how the parent handles it.
no, but
There are others who say, you say to them, I'm going to tell your father what you're doing. No, I'm sorry, teacher, I'm sorry.
And there's others, yeah, remember there's two ways in this. And there's others that you say
No,
they're going to tell to their parents and what happens.
they're going to
Yeah.
tell you, but they tell their parents about what you are doing.
No.
No,
The
no, no.
child.
When you
No.
say, I need the other one will say, no, no,
Yes.
and the other one will like, yeah, so.
Yeah.
there are other parents that tell you, you know what, my children are not. So whatever they do, please discipline them.
Yes, there are
Yeah.
others. But you cannot, sometimes even you're beating my child, who I have given you permission to beat, is going to affect the next parent's attendance in that class. So you've got to be careful. So my point is, you are spiritually accountable for the development of these children, but lead with God in mind. In other words, the point I'm trying to make really at this stage is your spiritual intelligence
Yeah.
is important. But on spiritual intelligence, let me share something else with you that will help you as a leader. Learn not to take everything personally. You know, Adventists, I love them. You know why? Everything is taken in the context of the great controversy. Satan. Understanding. You see, it helps you even to survive, to understand the things that are happening to you are happening because of a great controversy, cosmic fight. And so it helps you to conduct yourself in a better way and not despair and cry over everything. Axiological intelligence.
What's that teachers?
How do you even spell that?
AXIO. Don't worry, it's value-based intelligence.
No, but we want the word. Don't worry.
You
I'm
need
going
the
to
word?
use it.
I'm going to arrest you for it.
No, tomorrow I'm going to use it.
No, joking. Axiological, AXIO,
And then logical.
logical. Axiological. In other words, value-based leadership, based on your values. So you are a Christian. You are an Adventist. program that's coming after this. Let's try and finish this meeting on time. That was itself understood as, I have an agenda. I said, do you know that day what pained me as I drove home? The singers program never took place. Because,
And the discussions were not.
no, the discussions were as typical as they are. They go around the corner and they turn and take twists and turns and they curve where they don't need to curve. And they were long. Unfortunately, it was a disciplinary matter. So because it's a disciplinary matter, there were people who had vested interest in this disciplinary case. You know, when the church comes because there's a case that they want to defend, I had an incident like that. And so whatever I was doing was understood of in the light of trying to deal with this, you know. Thank you. So everything was understood. So they wanted to, you know, as you say, Sherry, they wanted even the details. You know, the only thing we're disciplined for as a church in reality is anything to do with sexuality. So people want the juice, as we say, the details. And I don't know why we do it. They don't have lives. So I'm saying those are some of the difficulties. So your values must come through. You are not here in the business of making decisions for the sake of decisions. You are here developing characters. So Sherry must learn to be patient with the one who is delaying us. Instead of saying, but why are you people wasting our time? Because when you do that, it shows your level of development in the Christian walk. Which you don't want it to show. You didn't plan that to be shown. So our value system must come and help us. What values do we hold dear as Adventists? Kelvin, for example, has decided long time ago, we want to be on a grace-oriented approach. We want to, grace is our values, one of our values. Bibliocentrism, or being centered around the Bible, is one of them. Calvin holds what is in Scripture more dear than any cultural thing you may come up with. In Venda, they may wear a skirt that long or that long, sweeping the floor, sweeping through the gates of the New Jerusalem. And then you come and say to us, you've got to do like they do in Venda. The hat and everything else doesn't matter. There was this lady in one of the churches. I'm hoping she's not online. She said to me, Pastor, I want the church to cover their heads. The women, especially the married women. There goes your freedom, Sherry, and Deborah, and all of the other, Jane, and everyone else that's here. I think there's everyone is married, except Pastor Makubani. So he says, I want all of them to cover. I said, why? She explained herself in the board, and she said, when I go home to my husband's family, that's what I do. So when I appear before Christ, my husband, I think it's decent. Now, remember, this is her value system. she's trying to bring it here. No problem, I suppose. But the value system is not the same for everybody, especially in a multicultural context such as we are in. You've got to, I talk about diversity intelligence in one of the slides. You've got to be able to manage the diversity you have. Your values. Remember just now we discussed about discipline. Your values come into contact with that situation. You believe children must be beaten. Somebody else doesn't. The value clash. So it must be based on the values that are common and shared. But it's still yours now. This is your ontological domain. Entrepreneurial intelligence. This is your ability to take risks, to be courageous, to be daring, to be bold, and take uncharted paths sometimes to solve problems. And you know an entrepreneur does that. An entrepreneur is a risk taker. An entrepreneur is a solution provider. So as a leader, you've got to have the courage to be unpopular at times. Because leadership is not always going to be popular. I was frustrated on 2 occasions when our current president was choosing his cabinet. He was taking eternity. Others felt he was afraid. In leadership, you've got to take decisions, whether or not they are popular. Of course, there must be good decisions. There are certain decisions you must be prepared to die for, but not every decision is worth dying for. There are certain things that are of cardinal importance that you must be prepared to die for, even if they are unpopular. You must have the courage to take the risks and say, for the sake of this adventurer club or this Pathfinder club, this is the way we are going. It may not be popular sometimes with the parents, it may not be popular with the church, it may not be popular with everyone else. But for the sake of benefiting this, and Lord help you to give you the wisdom to know the difference. To know when it is in your best interest or in their interest. Because if we find out that it is in your interest that you do this, then we have a problem. But leadership is about risk-taking. It is about the ability to, at times, take unpopular decisions. So you've got to be a person of courage. Creative intelligence. Creative intelligence. One of the requirements you're going to do or should be doing is creative resources development, because you've got to learn to be creative, to imagine, to innovate, to improve things. How you teach the curriculum, how you present, how you do some of the requirements. We need creative leadership. There are people who are mechanical. They only do things the way they know how. They cannot go out of the box. If the box says here, they cannot think differently from what they know. They cannot respond to questions. You know, these young people ask you very interesting questions sometimes. Is Adventism really real and relevant in my life? Now, some of us, or some of you as teachers, simply say, you must watch it. The devil is taking control of you. I've heard leaders say that. Because they don't know how to answer the question. You could simply say, look, let me think about your question. It's an important question you are asking. I don't know it right now. or it will take me a long time to make you see how relevant and meaningful Adventism is, or relevant in your life. I will have to come back to you. But don't be like one of my lecturers. One of my lecturers would say, I'll have to come back to you tomorrow. And tomorrow would never come. When you've made that promise, try and think. So creativity is important in leadership because you are in the business of solving problems. Leadership is problem solving. Leadership is coming up with new ways, charting new ways, coming up with things. For example, one of the challenges we have currently at Calvin is the fact that the curriculum, others feel it's archaic. It is not helpful to an urban child, an urban teenager, or an urban adventurer. Others feel we could use technology to develop a better implementation of the curriculum. Others feel it is not spiritual to help them grow in their relationship with Christ. So we've got to find ways and solutions to that. How do we make this curriculum or devise a different curriculum? Some of the kids find it boring, the curriculum. Others are saying they're doing it because the parents are requiring them. But it all, in my mind, depends on the creativity of the master guide and the creativity of the Pathfinder director, creativity of the instructor, creativity of whoever is presenting that particular curriculum. You could present things in an uncreative way, in a boring way, but you could also excite them and energize them. Then, adversity, intelligence. Leadership, tenacity, resilience, and survival. Leadership has its moments where it takes a dip. I don't know, maybe it's me. I live in anticipation of the worst because I have seen if you are anticipating possibilities, you survive better. You must know there's a period of nice moments, but there's a period things go worse. Sometimes from the very church that asked you to help their children. Everybody doesn't see what you're trying to do, does not, and comes and says what you are trying to do is useless or is critical of what you are doing. You will have criticism in leadership. Welcome to the club. You need to know how to survive those criticisms. There are ways and there are times you wear a raincoat. There are ways and times where you soak it in, listen, and improve and learn from it. There are times you need to have a perspective where you realize, oh, it's just one person. It's not everybody. Sometimes you cry and think, yo, everybody thinks that way. But it's not everybody that thinks that way.
Except if that one person is like 100 people.
It feels like 100 people, Chair. You are right. I'm happy you've experienced it. You are in leadership then. There are times it feels like it's a crowd. Or you imagine it's a crowd. Sometimes you imagine this conflict with this person is going to go blow into the church or this one person who has said something affects you in a way you had not anticipated. And you're like, you stay away from church for 20 months because this person's statement has affected you. Or this person's criticism affected you. You go and recover and come back. Continue with life. Adversity is the way of life. Remember, I said again, great controversy. You take it spiritually. I don't want to say you take it like a man, as if manhood is the only ultimate. You take it like a woman. Strong woman. And you survive. I mean, women go through a lot of pain in their lives, physically, emotionally, and otherwise. So you've got to have a way of surviving adversity. You've got to have a way of not letting everything get to you. It's thrown at you, but Joseph in chapter 45 of Genesis says something powerful there. I think it's 5. You meant it for the worst, for harm towards me. You know, there are times I enjoy my critics. Your critics, I have discovered. Sometimes I don't always remember this, but I like it. Your critics are your best friends. I know it's hard to believe. They want you to do your best. They expect and challenge you to do your best. They just don't know how to do it nicely. But it is better to have a person who you know what they think than a person who gives you a plastic smile or who gives you false compliments. Are you doing well, man? You did well. We like those, don't we? But you can learn from this experience and improve from it. All right?
So emotional intelligence.
Yeah? Yeah.
What do we say of leaders? They stand in front and they say, you're stressing me as a church.
Yes.
I don't know what to do anymore. They
Yes.
give up. What is that acceptable as a leader? If you see UT, I can no longer take
We must accept one thing as a church. Not everybody is going to take our nonsense. Not everybody is going to handle it well, the way you wish. You can't glorify the negativity we give towards people. We can't. We give people a lot of flack, especially, I always think of us as our worst enemies as black people. We think, I'm going to give you a break just now. Once I'm done with this last slide that's going to come. The slice that's going to come there. We are our worst enemy. We give ourselves the way, we treat each other the worst. We are each other's competitors sometimes. You look at my leadership and you're like, I want to show him or her better. You want to undermine the person, you want to In ministry, we talk about professional jealousy. We talk about this in other circles, where people, because of your professional success, become jealous of you. Some of us can't take glory going to another person. And so we want to show the whole church that, actually, guys, you did not elect me. You made a mistake. Look at how bad she or he is. Or, so we make our lives miserable for each other. Leadership is not about misery. But the reality, that's why I dealt with adversity. The reality is you must deal with it. You must be ready for it. Church is not supposed to be a place where there is misery, there's pain. I got into another district. conflicts were left, right, and center. So my slogan for that district was, I'm going to say it in English and try and in Xhosa and try and translate it for the benefit of Sidon. Makube mandi enkonzweni. Let church be a pleasant place. Don't make church miserable. Avoid misery in church, because some of the people run to church because that is their haven of safety. That's their safest place. That's their city of refuge. But we go all out sometimes to cause pain on another person. We are not helpful. Remember, people are here voluntarily. If you could remember that, for me as a pastor, you are my customers. In other words, my customer relations must improve. Yes, I make mistakes, but they must improve. Challenge myself every time to improve my customer relations. Don't treat people in a way that is uncomfortable, that they leave church. Don't be a reason for them to leave church. Are we following each other? Take a mic, please. I wanted to finish a portion, then you come up, but let's allow you. I want to guide you so next time so that we know, once we finish the portion, then you can note the questions as we go.
Jane was asking, so what do we do with those leaders who then resign, who feel they cannot take it? I'm looking at it from a perspective where Jane is going to now be the leader that is facing all this adversity. And then perhaps the question is, when she faces overwhelming adversity, overwhelming adversity, can she say, I'm done, I can't take this any longer?
When you quit, you are giving those that are wanting you to quit that benefit.
Yeah. So what I was going to say to her was, we should not join leadership with the expectation of the glory.
Of the glory?
Yes, that comes with being in leadership.
Okay.
We should join leadership with the expectation that both good and bad may come. And should the bad come, that should not be your reason for leaving. If you have been called to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and they will doubt you and undermine you and challenge the authenticity of your calling, you continue, Moses. You do not stop. Even after you had led them out and they had followed you, voluntarily followed you out of Egypt, when things happen out there, they will say, you have brought us out here to be slaughtered. They will say mean things to you. They will even put together caucuses against you. Even sometimes your own brother or sister, Aaron or Sarah. What's her name? No, that's not her name. Miriam. They will caucus against you. And if you have accepted the calling to be a leader, you cannot find yourself saying, no more, I'm done with these Israelites. I'm going back to my wife, or I'm going back to another place. I'm sick and tired. Let us listen to that teaching that Mfundisi was suggesting, that you must expect the worst and hope for the best. And when the worst comes, that should not be your reason for stopping. You must stop because you have fulfilled your calling, or at least your term is over, or your objectives have been served, not somebody else who is going to. And you must expect that they will try to take you down.
That's the difficulty with leadership. And so we encourage the church to be nice and pleasant to you, but they will not always be pleasant. They will forget some of their Christianity. You know, one of the things that I think Jesus said, he said, let them grow together until the harvest. And he also said, it's not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will make it. I read a statement and I want to share it with you in the week or so. I think I must share it. The statement says something like, even when the brethren gather in the board and business meetings, it's Ellen G. White, Satan is present to instigate things. I'll share it in the week, hopefully. All right, so adversity, intelligence, leadership, tenacity, resilience, and survival. You've got to survive. Got to survive. Sometimes you just need some time to cool off. Okay? Greatness, intelligence. You could also say, in interpreting that, you could say humility. You've got to, as a leader, especially as a Christian leader, be humble, leading with humility and self-restraint, self-control. Self-control. Remember we spoke about discipline. You want to slap this child. Go ahead if you want to, but be prepared for the flack that comes with it. We don't know how far the flack will go. We pray that it doesn't go far for your sake. But you lead with humility as a humble leader. Don't let positions get into your head. Don't let power and authority, I'll deal with that, power, intelligence. Later on, don't let that get into your head. Don't walk as if you are, because now you are a master guide, you are the biggest thing that this church has been waiting for. Don't walk big in this church. This church, it belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to any individual. It's not your father's church. He may have been. There was this young man, this pastor, I think it was a young man. His father was a pastor. He came around like Latita could do one day. Pray that he doesn't do that mess. Came and said, "This is my father's church. He built it." He was right, he built it. He's the one who, galvanized everybody, raised the funds from everywhere. But walk with humility. Don't think you own the church because you've now been asked to serve it in its leadership. The church owns the church. I always say, you must remember the church is a public organization. All of us have 1% shareholding. No one has a higher percent than the other. Yes, you may have contributed greater, fine, but it does not increase your ownership. This morning I was shocked when I woke up at 4 o'clock. I read the news. In fact, I was wondering about this Reserve Bank story. And I posted it on my Twitter and my Facebook. There's this guy who owns 57% of the Reserve Bank. Michael Dewar, something like that. He owns, so I was wondering, why are these guys struggling with this thing? It made a lot of sense. The Mail and Guardian ran that. The Financial Mail and all of the other ones ran that story. So I got back to 2017. How this guy is even treating them because he owns this thing. Now, Marcus Gill, the Reserve Bank governor at some stage, passed an act through Parliament to try and minimize the shareholding. But I don't think it has had an effect, in essence, because this guy got to own this in 2006 or so, own the bank, the central bank. South Africa is one of those that is owned by private owners. A shareholder. They say he walks into the boardroom, into their meetings with bare feet as a way of making a statement to them. He's a German. How does he own a South African bank? A national bank, it's supposed to be owned by the government. So these guys, the governors, all of them almost, are keeping saying, no, you know, it's a very difficult process. You see, it's not as easy as everybody thinks. The guy is, because of this, he says his shares, the KPMG did an evaluation and said it's 150 something per share. This guy says, no, my shares are 4,900 or 4,700 each. German owning a bank that's supposed to belong to South Africans. At least have some humility to realize you do. Huh? The what?
You must also come there without your shoes.
So, some of us think highly of ourselves than we should. They allow certain things to get into our heads. You are only a church member. We all are just church members, regardless of the position we hold. I don't have more shares in the church because I'm a pastor. I'm a 1% shareholder. So it's important that when we do that, we contribute to the collective, but remember, it does not increase our sense of superiority, sense of being, the owners of the church. Nobody owns the church. It's a public organization. One of the things I did not quite appreciate about Ted Wilson, when they were dealing with the ordination issues, he went to one of these unions and said, if my father had been here, there are certain things he would not have appreciated. Oh, thank you. Your father is not here. It's our church. We are the decision makers. It's not yours alone. It's ours. So when we vote, you must remember, one vote, one person, one vote. We don't say, okay, you are a multiple shareholder, let's give you more votes. Your vote does not count more than the person who does not have anything in the church. So walk with humility, even when you are dealing with these children. There may be children, yes, but walk with humility. Be humble. Don't all of a sudden get a sense of superiority because you are dealing with children. Some of these children, they may not be now, will be your leaders tomorrow. Let's take a break and come back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Don't ask me when we are ending, Lupondwana. You came late, you have no right. I know most of the people come late. And remember, we said whenever we lose time, we've got to catch it up. We were all the master guides in training were late today. All right, take a break. You take a break, walk around. You're going to need it because we're going to run.
I was here actually, I was the first person to come.
First person to what?
Master guiding training. I was the first one. At what? At 9:30.
sociological dimension. In other words, how you relate with people. I touched on it already. If you noticed, how you relate to others, your attitudes as well, and all of that. Humility deals with a dimension of the people. So I'm covering the requirements now. The first one was that one, Christian leadership. The second one is vision. I'll touch on it in the slide of performance. So this one is a sociological dimension. I will not spend time on it anymore than just to make a few statements. Building and sustaining pertinent relationships. It's important as a master guide, as a leader, to build relations with those that you work with, those that you have something to do with, those that are in your club, adventurer club, pathfinder club, or in your class. Build a relationship with them, because they are your building your relationship with them is important, because it also sustains them they look forward to interacting with you. Don't make us look forward to not interacting with you. Make us look forward to, I enjoy my class, I hear my daughter from time to time talking about pressurizing me for making sure we are on time, because she forgets I'm a pastor. I come out, leave church sometimes way after 1, because Tseho wants to talk about this, Deborah wants to talk about this, and Samuel and so on. So it's important that you build relations with the people you work with. So in leadership, character is the first thing. Your people skills is crucial. So don't make the mistake of not building good and positive relations with those you work with. Sometimes things go wrong and we correct them. Find a way of correcting it. Find a way of making sure things are. I'm sorry it does not cost you much, where you feel you have really wronged the person, and so on. All right. So those are some of the things that, as I say, but I want to touch on governance intelligence, because it's an important part in the church. I just touched on it a little bit when I was talking about 1% shareholding. It's important that you make decisions with the relevant people and understand your governance, you understand your policies, you understand. That's why as leaders, we must know and master the policy of the church. The program you are dealing with, the Master Guide program, not Master Guide, Adventurer or Pathfinder, has its policies in the manuals themselves. So you've got to follow those policies. You've got to know how to bring all the partners in decision making. Don't make decisions alone. Make it with the relevant people. If you're taking people to a camp, make it with the stakeholders. The parents, the children, the directors, and so on and so forth. All right, I want to skip that one as well. This is the one I want to focus on. Praxeological dimension. Praxis. Don't worry about these terms. No, don't use them. That's the thing. Praxeological has to do with the actions, but I use it here to mean performance. This is your leadership performance now. How do you perform? How do you do as a leader? How do you perform? You are not here to warm the benches. You are not a master guide. This is what master guides do. Once they are invested, they warm benches. Yeah. They want this thing so much. Fundis, I want to be a master guide. Fundis, I want to be a master guide. Once they become master guides, they do not become active. The conference and the union are now introducing a system where you need to refresh. And this is one of the things we'll talk about in the TOC camp. You need to refresh every time, and you'll have a refresher course. For example, you are a master guide only for 3 years effectively, and you just need to go and do a BST to refresh in some conferences. So but you must keep active. Even when you do other advanced programs. So let's start with this praxeological dimension, so that I deal with making tangible and sustainable difference. It is not just about occupying till he comes, as the King James would say, or just idling. It is not just about waiting. Remember the parables of the talents. I decided, no, I'm going to bury it until you come back. That's not what it is about. Keep it safe. Your master guide is like a talent. It must not be buried underground. It was little. So he was protesting. It was little because he knew beforehand if he gave him too much, he would have eventually lost too much. There are people you know, they are not going to push further than the basics. There are people you know. You see, our system sometimes disadvantages us. You are elected on the basis of other considerations than on your abilities. Yeah. I call it, SASA. SASA, S-A-S-A. Not the double S. In South Africa, it's S-A-S-A. Spirituality, abilities, stewardship, and availability. Yeah, you remember it because you were in the nominating committee. That's the criteria we use. I've used it for years in my ministry. Developed that formula. I say, we consider your spirituality, we consider your abilities, we consider your stewardship, we consider your availability. Sometimes this in itself disadvantages us. We do not always get the best leaders. The leaders who move things forward. There are people who occupy the position for whatever the term is, 1 year or 2 years, because they are not your performers. Yeah, why does a person accept it? Sometimes we cajole you, sometimes we manipulate you, we tell you things that make you feel bad about it, or sometimes you mean well to take it and you forget what you committed to at the beginning as life happens. But also, what I have observed, the more leaders you have, the more people hide behind others. The more leaders, minimum, or not minimum, mostly church boards have 25 people. I was in Kenya. Their elders were 70. They are 4,500. No, on paper they are 7,000. When I last checked, when I asked them, I spent some time with the church clerk, understanding. I spent time with the pastor. I even attended their church board at request. I went from the university where I was studying, and I went and sat in their church board. Man, if you want to see church par excellence, if you want to see people who take church seriously, Nairobi Central is the church. It's like a business meeting you are attending when they go to their meetings. They take their work seriously. Leaders, when they report serious work they have done. They are not playing games. They what? So they take their work very seriously. They are performers, they do well. All right, local intelligence, you must operate from a global and local perspective. You must operate from a global and local. You are a Seventh-day Adventist. You cannot operate simply on the narrow. I use the word global. The term was coined by somebody else. It's not my making. It means global and local. Can't remember the person's name, but it's a term we use a lot in leadership, local intelligence. So you must have the ability to understand things broadly, not just narrowly. Get the big picture kind of thing. Don't understand. You could be counting everything, but you don't see the big picture. One of the big pictures that you are doing, which I highlighted in the basic staff training, you are trying to help these children to accept Christ. You are not just perfecting their matching skills or making sure. You know what leaders do? They make sure that all the requirements are met by writing them up themselves. They've lost the picture. It is important that the activity book is leading towards a certain objective. The objective is the child, by the time they are 16, which is where you are, plus, they should have been baptized. So how do you, when you teach them, simply fulfill the requirements without understanding the Spirit? Why the Seventh-day Adventist Church developed the curriculum is not for them to have fun only. It is to have fun in a spiritual way, or to gain spiritual wealth, spiritual intelligence, spiritual understanding, spirituality through that process. So you are not just also, as a master guide, fulfilling your requirements. What I want to, I always do, which I did with those that attended, I want to explain why you are required to do steps to Christ, desire of ages, or whatever, or first aid, or physical fitness, or anything. I want to explain that so that you understand the why, because it connects to everything. We give you steps to Christ because we want you to be converted, because you are going to convert children. We give you desire of ages because we want you to do Jesus. You want to understand Jesus because you must have personally accepted Jesus. You're not going to be able to sell Jesus to these children if they don't. You do first aid, for example, because you are going to deal with children. They could collapse while you are busy with them on the ground or even the camp. You do camping skills so that you can understand why how to organize camps for them. So people don't get the big picture. The whole thing is about making sure they are connected to Jesus and they're connected to the church. When they, because of the way you are bringing the message across, want to leave the church, we've lost the big picture. So that's the local intelligence that you must have. So when you teach, you must teach with that in mind. Locus intelligence, it's the analyzing and understanding the realistic needs in the current situation. I just highlighted, for example, Calvin's children. Because they are urbanites, because they live in an ultra-urban setting, would like to do things that are suitable for their environment. These kids do technology, they go to class and they are taught using technology. We need to move towards that direction. We cannot help but move towards that direction. It's going to take a lot of money and years, but we must move towards that. So you must understand the local needs, so that when you present with that in mind. Vocational intelligence, pursuing calling and making meaningful contribution. Your sense of, I am called for this. Why am I in this thing? Why am I called for this? Why am I doing what I am doing? I am here to make a particular contribution, and make it meaningful, and it makes a difference. But I'm coming to the other things which I want to spend time with you on. Vision intelligence, that's the one I want to spend on because it's a requirement. In formulating transformative vision, there are two things I want to say to you there. First, you must have a clear vision of where you are going, why you are where you are. Obviously, vision means you must have a very clear analysis of where you are coming from. Understand where you're coming from so that you are able to take them. Because to have a vision that has no bearing on the current situation or on the historical situation does not help, because you'll be irrelevant. For example, grace, a church that is where grace flows, is our vision at Calvin. Because we understand an Adventist is a legalist, brought up in a black culture, for example. You know that Adventism is very legalistic. I was telling the church where I was when I come to church last week, the week before last. Togoza, ne? No, I bunked church, yes. I'm allowed once a month. Anyway, so I was in this church, I was saying, Adventists, black Adventists took everything too far in the past. They took everything too far. When you would come to the church, in other churches, they would measure the length of your skirt. You know? Because, and they would chase you. Your skirt is too short, go home. So I counted several things we have done to the extreme. It's very easy, and be cautious. It's very easy as a Seventh-day Adventist, especially a black Seventh-day Adventist, to be an extremist, a legalist. You've heard me say in several sermons that it is a concern to me that you could lose heaven as a Seventh-day Adventist. And be right. And be right. For example, the Sabbath is so dry. It is just about the rightness of the day, not the meaning and the theological significance of the Sabbath. Because we've taken things too technical, too legalistically. Even when we relate to each other, it's very legalistic. So those are the dangers of being a Seventh-day Adventist in the black context, because the black context loves rules. Our people do with rules without understanding why. I don't know if I told you the story. There was this particular church where everybody, when they reach this spot, they would go like this. Pass it every time. Years later, the reason was there was rain dropping in here, so they had to put dishes. Years later, they found money and fixed this place, but they still went. Nobody now understood what was the reason. Rule. That is why the black culture does not progress. Your culture in the rural areas time has stopped for it forever because of the particular understanding that people have. And so they do, for example, I ask a question in my culture where they require people to do circumcision. Why do you use the old assegai, the old mkonto, what do you call it now? The old blade when technology has moved. For example, I'd say to Vivian, I don't like the way we think our tradition is imibacho. You are saying something you do not understand when you talk and take umbhaco as your culture, because umbhaco was introduced as slave wear. Same as with India, what do you call them, the German print? The German print, what do you call it in your shweshwe? It was introduced as the thing they wore as slaves. You can research it and find it out. It was introduced. No, I'm not saying that. it was introduced as part of the slave attire. It was a particular era in our lives in the 1800s. There was a factory in East London that made this. I passed it on several times when I pastored East London. Da Gama. Da Gama made this print. It was brought by Europeans to Africa. This German print. It is a German print. It comes from Germany. It was the Germans who brought it into Africa. Before that, we did not wear that. We moved to wear that. At some stage, we moved to wear. So your tradition is what? 1820? We wore, there was a time we didn't wear anything. We didn't wear anything in the Garden of Eden. We were naked. But as we evolved, we wore skin covers. And as you know, just to protect the essentials. And in some cultures, they wore nothing. But why are we, for me, what I fail to understand is how we become stagnant and make these the sacred things. It was in 1800s that we had these things. And they were brought to us. So why we are not progressing, not only in terms of our clothes and everything, is simply because of this particularity, the way an African, if you give an African something, he will hold on to it for life. And not think it beyond what it was. So I always say, you are insulting our people when you say, our tradition is that. Because that is not our tradition. It was a particular era. It was introduced to us. Not forever. So we've got to come up with new vision, new thinking, new ways of doing things. We may have done it that way in a particular era. It's fine. But we are not there now. We are moving forward as people. No group of people is stagnant. The Seventh-day Adventist Church was, when it was formed, a progressive church. It's a church for progressives. In fact, the Seventh-day Adventist Church says, not the greatest wonder of man, sorry, I was quoting the wrong one. We need people who are not mere reflectors of other people's ideas. Ellen G. White says this herself. We need to be progressive. In your ways of doing things, don't be stuck. Understand what is the key concept. When I became a youth director in the Cape Conference, one of the things I spent time doing is, what is it we are trying to do here? And then I created programs that were not there before. But our people sometimes get stuck in those programs. Pathfinder Fair is the only thing that we've thought of, but there are other programs we can create and think of. Because we are progressive, we are thinkers, we are not stagnant, we are not meant to stand in one place. We've got to learn to do things differently, do things better. Every time you must ask, I told you earlier on, you improve. Are we following each other? So as it's important that we learn that and provide new vision. Think of vision. Think of what you are trying to do. What is your mission? What is it you are trying to do here? And be able to craft new strategies. When I came here, for example, one of the things I realized and I said, the time I landed here, was that we cannot talk about door-to-door incentive. It's a joke. It's a strategy that worked in the past. But the reality is you can't go through those high walls and high gates. You can't. How do you get to those? Because even you've got to say who you are at the gate, and I say, do I need to see this Jehovah's Witness? And so Calvin, for example, is using technology to reach people we may not be able to reach. Of course, There is a higher percentage that's South African, there's a percentage that's, in America and Jamaica and all of that. But there are people who still ask you, when are we doing evangelism? Yet we are doing it. That we are not, of course, we need to find other ways where you are personally involved. We're still thinking of those. It's not a problem. We've got to crack our heads to think differently than the past. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has been on the cutting edge. I mean, look at what we did. We were the first church to introduce, maybe let me backtrack. The tent we so dearly love was introduced in Iowa in America. Tent evangelism. A.G. Daniels was the one. I can't remember the year, but I can give it to you one time if you send me an WhatsApp and remind me. The tent was used from there and transported throughout the world by an influential man, A.G. Daniels. It is not the only thing we did. We have pioneered even satellite evangelism as this church. We came up with satellite evangelism. We had satellites everywhere. We were one of the people who were on the cutting edge, on the front line of that. But we cannot be stagnant. We must come up with new visions. The Bible says, in the last days, I don't know why we read that verse and read only the youth part. We don't read the strategy part. In the last days, Joel 2:28, I will pour my spirit on all flesh, on all people. Your young men will dream dreams. No, read it please for me. Your old people, I think it's the other way. It's the old people that dream dreams, and the young people see visions, or one of the two. But it's the same thing, really. So they will see dreams. They will dream and see. And your older people will see visions. In other words, everybody is going to come. I have been to many churches, very conservative districts, I don't want to mention their names, but I've been to many districts that are so conservative. Yet you hear, I was in that particular meeting, I was presenting about a way forward for the district, for the church. One lady who was at Bethel, who was approaching 80 at that time, when everybody was opposing everything, stood and said, these are the things we should be doing. These are the things we have done, some of them, in the past. So you are seeing that it's not a question of age. The most conservative, ultra-conservative group of people is students at STASM. Some of them are extremists to the shock of their young people. They become very extreme. There are certain cultures too, Jane, you know this one, that are very conservative. The Zimbabwean strand of Adventism and the South African are different. Very different. The Zimbabwean is more conservative. The what? Zambia is worse, yes, you are right. So Zambia even chased Ella Summons from preaching because she was a woman. But you also have churches. There's churches here in Gauteng who are ultra-conservative. I went to that church. I went to one of they wear white gloves. There are others who say you must wear, what do you call it? You must, when you do communion, you must wear your black and white suit. I don't like it. It's adding more problems to us. It's adding more rules. For what? So I'm trying to say, we've got to understand, you have got to have visions, I want to engage you in an exercise now. I want you to, in the next 2 minutes only, write your vision statement.
For what? Interesting. It's an assignment I'm giving you for meeting the requirements. No. Your vision. What do you want to realize? What do you want to become? What do you want to see? Is that how do you say it in your language too? That's close, I thought.
No, it's universal.
Huh? No, it's influence of the Xhosa. They haven't to ask yo. No. Let's write that. Write your vision statement. Yeah, please. Please write it in the class. Write it for us. Vision statement. What is it that you want to realize, you want to achieve, you want to become, you want to... Usually vision statements to become. Vision statements have timelines and they have specific territory or area. So please write. I know you are looking for me to hoping for a vision of your vision. You are hoping it will just come by looking at me. Please write, what would be your vision? What is your vision? It's important that you write your vision because many of us do things that we are not supposed to do, that are not in line with our vision. You're doing what is available. And we spend a lot of money and a lot of energy on things that are not in line with our vision, instead of pursuing our visions. No, you just write what you want to become. It's very easy. Okay, share it with us, please. Let's have the mic roving around. Everyone is sharing. Short sentence, powerful sentence. Not long, not a thesis, but just punctilia.
To be an effective resource to my children, church, and community in spiritual growth.
In spiritual growth.
Yes.
Okay, don't copy. Continue. Thank you very much. Sherry and... No, yours is different. You are unique, remember? You're as unique as your fingerprints.
Okay. I wrote, live a holistic and balanced life at home, work, and play.
Good. Thank you very much. Jane and Sidon. Sidon behind you. Okay. Good. Let's go.
To be the best that I can be in anything and everything that I do, and to mentor children and my children, and to actually see them being...
Woo! This is shorten it for us, please. Shorten it. You are doing well and you lengthened it too much. Yeah, please shorten it. Shorten it. Use fewer words. If you cannot use words, use at least 10 words. 10 at most. Bridget.
I would like to become a public health specialist and address the challenges faced by my community.
He says, speak to it, close to it. Yes, like me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's nice. I would like to become a public health specialist and address the challenges faced by my community.
Thank you. You can shorten it. Become a public health specialist. Just like that. Shorten, because it's something you want to memorize. And you want it to be the driving force behind you. You want to remember it everywhere. You keep it in front of you. Tsego, the survivor. Give it a shot.
I just said I want to live out God's purpose in my life so that I can be an influence around those.
Thank you. Good. Good. Sidon? Jane? Jane is still envisioning the vision. Sidon? All right. I want you to write your vision statement and tell us next week, how are you going to achieve that vision? Next time we meet, when I say that, next time. So you tell us how you're going to realize that vision. You can rethink it, don't worry about that, but you can, go deep into it. I want you to write. Now, there is something I call, Sherry, you need to listen to this one, but if you have to go, then we are ending at past, come at me. How do you find your mission and purpose in life? How do you find your mission and purpose in life? I call it MAP, mission and purpose. All right? I've stopped using this now because I want to help you to meet the requirement, and then we can release you today. By past, we want to be done. How do you realize your MAP? And I use MAP as an abbreviation, but also as to guide you to say a map is what you walk on. It is what you reach. I use a formula. I call it 4P. No, I'm not asking them an assignment. I'm helping them because of time. A formula that took me a while to develop. It pained me. I struggled with it personally. But map is in 4P. So you can draw a circle, and divide it into 4 quadrants. In the center, where they converge, write MAP, map, mission and map. Mission and purpose, sorry. MAP. All right? Right in the first corner. I'm helping you now to find your map. Passion. What excites you? What thrills you? What motivates you? What keeps you aflame? Passion. Interest is another word for passion. What interests you? What really excites you? What wakes you up in the morning? Whether it is something you are already doing or you are considering doing in the future, is the same. It's okay. That's the first one. The second one, in the other quadrant, on the side of the quadrant, or maybe go to the second one, the lower one after passion. People. What people thrill you? What people make you come alive? What people do you enjoy doing things with? Who are your customers for your passion? I'm summarizing, guys. I could detail it and so on and so forth, but I'm mindful of the fact that we need to release you by 1:30. So, people. The third one is the third quadrant on the upper right. Performance. What do you do the best? I would have been charging for you for this, but I'm being helpful. What do you do the best? When you do this thing, everybody says, wow, this is you. You've done it well. You excel in this thing. You excel to the extent that you do not have a competitor in that. But you are not competing. Forget competition. But I'm saying you do it so well that you do not have competition with it. The last one is, I'm laughing because you don't expect this from a pastor, but let me give it to you anyway. This thing, in the first P, you would do it so well even if you are not paid for it because it's a passion. But in the last P, this thing would give you huge profit. It must sustain you. It must give you a living. You would be able to do a lot of things. But that P also stands for posterity, your legacy. What you would leave behind. All right? So this thing, you would, because it's your passion, follow me now, because it's your passion, you would do it so well that you would impact certain people and they would pay you huge profits. You follow? So that's your map. Now, I always tell people you must have the discipline to follow your map. You can't go to, what is your town? What's your town? Tohoyando. You can't be going to Tohoyando when your map is pointing you to Cape Town. Many of us go to Tohoyando and our maps are pointing us to Cape Town. Are you following? We make the mistake. Now, that helps you. I was taking my son through that. That helps you even decide your career. Because your passion becomes the basis of your career. Because you love this thing that you're doing. You enjoy it. It's powerful. It's a driving force. It's exciting for you. It's a pulling force. You will do it the best. You will invest scores and scores of time in performing this thing. And you, again, will do it for a specific customer who will be prepared to give you the profits. But it helps you to direct your life. Does it help you? So that you find your mission. So next week I want those 2 assignments. You must have, the second one is I'm giving you. Next time we meet. The first one is the vision one. The second one is write your map.
Oh, the map is the second one, okay.
Yeah, write your map. As Bridget, I have discovered through this rigorous exercise, through this critical analysis I was doing, that my map is ABC. I exist here for this specific thing. I am here to do this and the other.
In line with leadership.
It's 23 minutes. Let's engage and ask questions. You have 7 minutes to.
In line with, it's all the same in line with leadership.
Yes, it's leadership. You will be a leader in that particular sphere.
So in our files, how do we give you evidence of attending?
Notes.
Just the notes.
Notes. Remember, I stated how you meet it and how you show evidence. You can type it, or you can copy it, or whatever, so long as it's in your file. So you've written the personal notes. If you want to type it, you type it. If you want to keep it as is, you show the evidence that you did this. Questions, comments before we go? I want to discuss. Archie, you may switch off the online audience so that we can now focus on. I told you, I sent it.
Anyone. Dress better.
It's fine.
Behave better.
It's fine. It's okay. It will be helpful. We can learn from you. Now, my point is, eh? Guys, I want to ask you, is our Sunday okay? Because there's no other time we could find with a group last time. It became a problem because of the classes which, you know, some of you have to meet the requirement of being a staff member, an instructor, and so on and so forth. So we were unable to find each other on the time. So are we keeping Sunday?
Yes.
Please note, as I said earlier on, some Sundays we may do it in the afternoon when there's a business meeting. We are hoping that we can keep the business meetings on Sabbath evening, which is the trend we are going. But in the event that it doesn't happen, we'll probably have to shift it to afternoon. Yes, I understand, but I'm saying the trend is good now, where we are doing business meetings